Step outside tonight for one tiny errand. Maybe it's taking out the trash. Maybe it's locking the car. Maybe it's just crossing a dark yard with your phone battery dead and the porch light behind you. And for a second, even though you know perfectly well you're safe, your body tightens. Your ears sharpen. Your eyes start inventing shapes. The darkness doesn't just look different, it feels personal. That feeling is ancient, so ancient it reaches back far beyond cities, beyond houses, beyond language itself. Long before electric light, before villages, before even fully human faces looked back at each other across a fire, night out in the open was not scenery. It was exposure, it was vulnerability. It was the hour when the world belonged to other animals. Tonight's question is simple, but it opens onto millions of years of fear, adaptation, and invention. Why did early humans avoid open land at night? At first glance, you might picture the savanna as our natural stage. Golden grass, big sky, upright figures walking confidently into the sunset. It looks heroic. It looks like freedom. Here's the reversal. In deep time, open land after dark may have been one of the most dangerous places our ancestors could possibly be. Because look at what they were working with. No claws, no fangs, no thick fur, no speed worth bragging about. Human night vision is poor compared with many predators. Our noses are unimpressive. Our hearing is decent, not extraordinary. Strip away your walls, your flashlight, your door lock, and you are suddenly forced to confront a very uncomfortable truth. The human body is not built to win a nighttime contest on open ground, and that weakness mattered even more 2 million years ago. In Africa, the landscape held leopards, lions, hyenas, giant eagles, packs of wild dogs, crocodiles near water, and plenty of other creatures that did not need technology to dominate the dark. Some hunted by stealth, some by endurance, some just waited. For a small-bodied hominin, especially a juvenile, night in the open was not a mood. It was a probability curve bending in the wrong direction. For a long time, even scientists got part of this story backwards. In the 20th century, Raymond Dart looked at fossil accumulations from South Africa and imagined early hominins as fierce bone-wielding hunters. It was dramatic. It was memorable. But later work, especially by C.K. Brain, forced a harder, humbling conclusion. Many of those bone piles made far more sense as the leftovers of carnivores. In other words, our ancestors were not always the terror. Sometimes they were the meal. Sit with that. The creatures on our family tree did not begin as masters of the landscape. For immense stretches of time, they were intelligent, social, increasingly inventive primates living under predation pressure so constant it likely shaped where they moved, where they rested, and where they absolutely did not want to be when the sun went down. Now, descend into the evidence. In South Africa, the Taung child, one of the most famous early hominin fossils ever found, was once celebrated mainly for what it revealed about the brain, but reanalysis of damage around the eye sockets suggested something chillingly specific. This child was likely killed by a large bird of prey. Think about what that means. Not metaphorically vulnerable. Literally vulnerable, a young hominin could be carried into the sky. At Swartkrans, the story darkens further. C.K. Brain and later researchers argued that many hominin remains there entered the cave through carnivore activity. One famous skull, known as SK-54, bore punctures consistent with a leopard attack. Open country by day was already risky. Open country by night, when ambush hunters owned the shadows, would have been worse. So what do you do if you are smart enough to anticipate danger, but not yet powerful enough to erase it? You change your behavior. You avoid exposure. You seek edges, height, shelter, company, and eventually fire. Early on, trees were likely part of the answer. Even hominins spending more time on the ground may have retained behaviors of climbing or nesting in safer positions when possible. But trees are not a perfect solution on every landscape. They are absent in some places, dangerous in others, and hardly secure against every predator. So the search for nighttime safety kept pushing our ancestors towards something more reliable. Defensible refuges. Caves and rock shelters matter here, not because every early human lived romantically by torchlight in a cave, but because any place with fewer approach routes, harder access, and some physical barrier between sleeping bodies and open darkness changes the game. A cave mouth can be watched. A rocky ledge can be defended. A group packed together under shelter can detect threats earlier than scattered individuals alone on a plain. Maybe that is why the landscape itself begins to split in human perception. Daylight land is for movement, for foraging, for tracking hoof prints, for scanning the horizon. Nightland is different. Nightland belongs to sound, scent, concealment, and surprise. The same plain that fed you under the sun could become a killing field after twilight. So early humans learned temporal geography. Not just where to go, but when. A waterhole at noon was opportunity. The same waterhole after dark might be an invitation written for lions, hyenas, and anything else waiting just beyond the grass. And here's what nobody talks about enough. The night changes the math of cooperation. In daylight, a predator might be spotted at a distance. At night, information collapses. Vision shrinks, surprise grows. That means sleeping in groups, rotating vigilance, choosing where the young lie, keeping elders close, and reading every sound correctly are no longer minor social habits. They are survival technologies. This is where fear becomes creative. The same mind that startles in darkness also plans around it. It remembers which places smelled wrong, which gullies trapped sound, which outcrops gave a clear view of the moonlit grass, which shelter had only one entrance, which route back to water became a death corridor after dusk. Night was not just something to endure. It was a problem to solve. And eventually, one solution changed everything. Fire did not instantly turn early humans into kings of the earth. The first relationship was probably fragile, opportunistic, and difficult to maintain. But evidence from Wonderwork Cave in South Africa now suggests that early humans, likely Homo erectus, were bringing fire into the cave as far back as about 1.79 million years ago. Not making it freely yet, perhaps, but capturing it, carrying it, keeping it alive. Let that sink. Somewhere in the deep Pleistocene, a group of human ancestors may have watched a wildfire on the landscape, seized a living piece of it, and escorted that dangerous brightness back into shelter. Why would that matter? Warmth, yes. Cooking later, yes. But also this. Flame pushes back the perimeter of fear. It creates a zone where eyes can work, where predators hesitate, where social life can continue after sunset, where children can sleep with one less layer of terror wrapped around them. Here's the real reversal. We often imagine intelligence as abstract brilliance, as if human greatness began with art or mathematics or philosophy. But some of our most profound intelligence may have emerged from a much simpler need. How do we make it through the night without being eaten? Travel forward, and you can see the strategy thickening. By roughly 300,000 years ago, the wooden spears from Schöningen in Germany show humans were no longer merely avoiding predators. They were organized hunters with planning, skill, and cooperation. Around sites like Terra Amata, controversial in details but still evocative, there is evidence suggesting deliberate shelters. Piece by piece, over enormous spans of time, we converted vulnerability into engineering. But the old fear never vanished completely. It moved inward. It became instinct, the little rush you feel crossing a dark parking lot, the urge to gather around light, the comfort of locked doors, the way children ask for a nightlight before they can explain why. You think that's ordinary? It isn't. It is evolutionary memory expressing itself through modern furniture. Because open land at night once meant too much uncertainty, too many directions for danger to come from, too few seconds to respond. Our ancestors did not avoid it because they were timid. They avoided it because they were learning that survival sometimes begins not with conquest but with caution. Not with dominance, but with choosing the right place to stop moving, and that, strangely, is part of what made us human. We became the species that could feel fear, share it, communicate it, plan around it, and then build against it. First with bodies pressed together in the dark, then with favored sleeping sites, then with shelter, then with fire, then with weapons, then with walls, then with cities visible from space. So the next time you step outside at night and feel that ancient little tightening in your chest, don't dismiss it as irrational. It is old knowledge. It is your nervous system carrying a message from ancestors who understood, with brutal clarity, that darkness on open ground was never empty. It was occupied, watched, alive with teeth and patience. And the reason you get to turn a key, flick a switch, and walk back into safety is because, for millions of years, they asked the same question you would have asked in their place. Where can we be that the night cannot so easily reach us?